The Brooklyn Nets are looking like legitimate championship contenders with the arrival of James Harden. Following his acquisition from the Houston Rockets and the return of point guard Kyrie Irving after a leave of absence, the Nets have been all-time great offensively, with the duo suiting up next to scoring machine Kevin Durant. The Nets' offense has been downright breathtaking at times, but it's the other end of the floor that they're having issues with. Their offensive rating currently would be the highest offensive rating in NBA history if the season was to finish today, but their current defensive rating would also rank the lowest in NBA history. With that in mind, one must wonder if the Nets truly have enough to get it done when it matters most come playoff time. Their offense is flowing due to the up-and-down nature of the regular season, but when the postseason comes around, the team will eventually have to lean on their defense in games that are played largely in the half-court. Executing offensively becomes increasingly more difficult, and games are won with the ability to put together a string of stops in close contests. Despite the roster's otherworldly offensive talent, the Nets are somewhat in front of schedule in their championship aspirations. Durant is coming off the worst injury in sports, and Irving was also injured last campaign, prematurely ending his season. Both players arrived in the summer of 2019, joining a young core that overachieved in their absence. They also welcomed former league MVP Steve Nash to lead the charge, and the foundations of their title pursuit were in place. Questions surrounding the health of Durant understandably lingered, but it was obvious after the first few games of this season that he was fully healthy and just as dominant. With Irving also thriving alongside KD, the Nets looked lethal straight out of the gates. Just as the roster was starting to look perfectly balanced, controversy started to surround the organization, with rumors circulating superstar James Harden wanted out of Houston, with Brooklyn as his preferred destination. At the same time, key role player Spencer Dinwiddie suffered a season-ending ACL tear that created a hole in the Nets' depth. To make matters worse, Irving mysteriously disappeared from the team and refused to play as the Nets were engineering the trade for Harden. Irving would eventually rejoin the team, but missed time due to COVID-19 protocols, and Durant was being load managed on back-to-backs, causing Harden to have an uneasy start to his Nets transition. Fast forward a handful of games together, and despite some early growing pains, the Nets now look incredibly formidable with their big three. They have gelled quickly, with Harden taking a backseat as a scorer and taking on primary playmaking responsibilities. Irving and Durant have continued to score the ball at high clip, but for everything good about their offensive supremacy, it's evident the roster still lacks depth and a defensive identity. The Nets are undersized, with Durant forced to play the 5 for extended minutes, following DeAndre Jordan's relegation to the bench to accommodate Harden's arrival. Even when he does see minutes, Jordan isn't the same player he once was for the LA Clippers, and his limited offensive tools and suspect free throw shooting make him unplayable down the stretch. The price the front office paid for Harden's services was the complete loss of depth and defense, with premier shot blocker Jarrett Allen and athletic swingman Taurean Prince shipped off in the trade. They still have the likes of Bruce Brown and Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, but they'll have to overachieve in their roles on both sides of the ball for the Nets to transform into a serviceable defensive team. With roster spots available, it's likely the Nets will be big players in the buyout market, or try to orchestrate another trade that addresses the deficiencies in their roster. One of the names floating around is Cleveland Cavaliers big man Andre Drummond, who has had a fantastic start to the season as a part of an improved Cavs team. Drummond is on an expiring deal, and with the arrival of Jarrett Allen, his future remains unclear in an already crowded front court that has Larry Nance Jr., JaVale McGee, and Kevin Love. With Drummond's market value as high as it's been for some time, the Cavs front office are reportedly looking to move him and receive assets in return that can assist their ongoing rebuild. Drummond would give the Nets a genuine paint presence on both ends, and provide some much-needed production from the front court. The Nets have already started to reshape their roster, with reports they are finalizing a deal to sign 3-and-D wing Iman Shumpert as a free agent. And another name linked to the Nets is Drummond's teammate JaVale McGee, who is another high-level rim protector that could be moved before the trade deadline. What this roster looks like come playoff time remains to be seen, but it's likely they'll attempt to fix their weaknesses before the postseason. Who else do you think the Nets might go after to help their defense? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for future videos.